How would you feel if the man you thought would never leave served you legal papers right at your family dinner? What really happens when your secret is exposed and everyone, including your own sister, takes his side? This is the story of how I lost everything I thought I controlled, all because I didn't log out of Tinder. My name is Vesperine Aldane, but everyone calls me Vez. I'm 33, work as a dental hygienist, and I thought I had my life perfectly under control. I lived with Nate Royston, Nate, in his beautiful townhouse for 3 years. He was 35, an accountant, stable, reliable, and completely predictable. That was the problem. The morning everything started unraveling, I was sitting at our kitchen island, scrolling through Tinder while Nate made coffee. The familiar ping of a match notification made my heart race with excitement I hadn't felt in months. "Morning, babe," Nate said, setting a steaming mug beside me. His brown hair was perfectly combed, his button-down shirt already pressed for another day of spreadsheets and client meetings. I quickly minimized the app, switching to Instagram. "Morning." He paused behind my chair, and I felt his eyes on my phone screen. "You've been on your phone a lot lately. Everything okay?" "Just checking social media," I said, not looking up. "You know how addictive it gets." Nate sat across from me, stirring sugar into his coffee with that methodical precision that drove me crazy. Everything he did was measured, calculated, boring. When was the last time he surprised me? When had he ever made my pulse quicken like that Tinder notification just did? "I was thinking we could do something fun this weekend," he said. "Maybe drive up to the mountains, do some hiking." I finally looked at him, his earnest brown eyes, the slight smile that meant he was trying to connect with me. It should have melted my heart. Instead, it irritated me. "Hiking? Nate, we did that last month. And the month before that." His smile faltered. "Okay, what would you like to do?" I shrugged, returning to my phone. Another Tinder message had come through. This one from Silas Grant, a 31-year-old photographer with arms covered in tattoos and eyes that promised trouble. Everything Nate wasn't. "I don't know. Something spontaneous for once." "I can be spontaneous," Nate said, but even he didn't sound convinced. My phone buzzed again. Silas had sent a photo. Nothing inappropriate, just him at some trendy coffee shop downtown. But the message read, "Wish you were here to make this morning interesting." The thrill shot through me again. This was what I was missing. This excitement, this unpredictability. Nate was a good man, but good wasn't enough anymore. I deserved more than routine coffee and planned hiking trips. "Vez?" Nate's voice cut through my thoughts. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "Getting lost in your phone. We're trying to have a conversation." I set the phone down harder than necessary. "Sorry, work stuff. You know how Dr. Martinez gets when we don't respond to his messages immediately." It was a lie. Dr. Martinez rarely texted outside office hours, and Nate probably knew that. But he just nodded, accepting my excuse like he always did. "I should get going," he said, finishing his coffee. "Big client meeting today." "Another thrilling day of tax returns," I muttered. Nate paused at the kitchen doorway. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Have a good day at work." He stood there for a moment longer, and I could feel the weight of his stare, but I didn't look up from my phone, where Silas was asking if I wanted to meet for drinks later. After Nate left, I allowed myself to really look at Silas's messages. He was everything Nate wasn't. Spontaneous, exciting, dangerous. We'd been chatting for 2 weeks now, ever since I'd re-downloaded Tinder just for fun. I told myself it was harmless. I wasn't actually cheating. I was just keeping my options open. My sister Cass called while I was getting ready for work. "Hey sis, Mum wanted me to remind you about dinner Sunday. The whole family's coming." "Including Nate's family?" I asked, applying mascara in the bathroom mirror. "Of course, Seraphine's bringing little Mira. You know how much Dad loves that kid." Mira was Nate's 10-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Sweet kid, But she had this way of watching everything with those big, knowing eyes that made me uncomfortable, like she could see right through me. "Great," I said. "Another thrilling family dinner. Vess, are you okay? You sound, I don't know, different lately." I paused, mascara wand halfway to my lashes. Cass was my younger sister by 2 years, but she'd always been the observant one, the quiet one who noticed everything. "I'm fine, just work stress." "And things with Nate?" "Things with Nate are fine," I said quickly, too quickly. There was silence on the other end. Then, "Okay. Well, if you need to talk." "I don't. I'll see you Sunday." I hung up before she could say anything else. In the mirror, my reflection looked back at me. Blonde hair perfectly styled, makeup flawless, green eyes bright with the kind of excitement I hadn't felt in years. I looked good. I looked like someone who deserved better than predictable Sunday dinners and hiking dates. My phone buzzed. Silas again. "So, about those drinks." I typed back, "Can't tonight. Maybe tomorrow." "I'll make it worth the wait," came his immediate reply. The thrill shot through me again, stronger this time. This was what I'd been missing. This was what Nate could never give me. At work, I found myself checking my phone constantly. Silas sent photos throughout the day. His latest photography project, the view from his apartment, a selfie that made my stomach flutter. Each message felt like a secret rebellion against the mundane life I'd been living. "You're glowing today," said Janet, my coworker, during our lunch break. "Just had a good morning," I replied, typing another response to Silas. "Things going well with Nate?" I looked up from my phone. Janet was in her 50s, married to the same man for 25 years. She wouldn't understand the suffocating predictability of my relationship. "Sure," I said. "Everything's great." But even as I said it, I was planning my escape. Not permanently. I wasn't ready to give up the security Nate provided. Just temporarily. Just enough to feel alive again. When I got home that evening, Nate was already there, cooking dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the kitchen, and soft jazz played from the speakers. It was the kind of romantic gesture that would have melted me 3 years ago. "Smells good," I said, dropping my purse on the counter. "Thought I'd try that new recipe you mentioned," he said, stirring something in a pan. "How was your day?" "Fine." I was already reaching for my phone, checking for new messages from Silas. "Dr. Martinez keep you busy with those urgent texts?" There was something in Nate's tone that made me look up. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just noticed you've been getting a lot of messages lately." My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice casual. "It's called having a social life, Nate. You should try it sometime." He turned from the stove, wooden spoon still in his hand. "What's going on with you lately? You've been different. Distant." "I haven't been distant. You're just being paranoid." "Am I? Because it feels like you're somewhere else even when you're sitting right here." I set my phone down and crossed my arms. Maybe I'm just tired of the same routine every single day. Wake up, work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, sleep, repeat. When did we become so boring? We're not boring. We're stable. We're building something together. Are we? Because it feels more like we're just existing. Nate turned off the burner and faced me fully. "What do you want, Vess? Really?" The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Excitement, passion, the feeling that I was desirable, that I had choices. But I couldn't say that. "I want you to stop being so clingy and insecure," I said instead. The words hit him like a slap. I saw it in the way his shoulders sagged, the way his eyes dimmed. "I'm not being clingy. I'm trying to connect with my girlfriend who seems to have checked out of our relationship." "I haven't checked out. God, you're so dramatic." My phone buzzed on the counter. Both of us looked at it. The notification was visible on the lock screen. "Silas, can't stop thinking about you." The silence that followed was deafening. Nate's eyes moved from the phone to my face, and I watched as understanding dawned. "Who's Silas?" he asked quietly. My mind raced. "A friend from work." A friend from work who can't stop thinking about you. It's not what you think. What am I thinking, Vess? I grabbed my phone, but not before Nate saw me swipe away the notification. The damage was done. You're thinking something that isn't true, I said. You're being paranoid and jealous, just like I said. But Nate wasn't buying it anymore. I could see it in his eyes. The shift from confusion to suspicion to something harder. Something I'd never seen before. Show me your phone, he said. Excuse me? If it's nothing, show me your phone. Absolutely not. I'm not going to be treated like a criminal in my own home. It's my home, Vess, and if you have nothing to hide, I don't have to prove anything to you. I clutched my phone tighter. The fact that you're even asking shows how little you trust me. Nate stared at me for a long moment. Then he turned back to the stove, turning off all the burners. I'm not hungry anymore, he said quietly. He walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there with my phone and my secrets, and the growing realization that maybe I'd pushed too far. But as another message from Silas came through, that familiar thrill overrode any guilt I might have felt. Nate was weak. He was boring. He was exactly the kind of man who would let his girlfriend walk all over him. I was wrong about that last part. Sunday dinner at my parents' house was always an ordeal, but this week felt different. The tension between Nate and me had been building since the kitchen incident 3 days ago. He'd been polite but distant, and I'd caught him watching me with those calculating eyes more than once. The Royston family arrived at the same time we did. Seraphine, Nate's 27-year-old sister, emerged from her car with 10-year-old Mira. Seraphine had always been friendly enough, but I sensed she was protective of her brother. Mira, with her dark hair in braids and those observant eyes, gave me a shy wave. Vess, Nate! My mother, Elspeth, rushed out to greet us. At 60, she still had the energy of someone half her age, always trying to keep the peace and make everyone happy. My father Joel, stern-faced and practical at 62, nodded from the doorway. Come on in. Dinner's almost ready. The dining room was crowded with all of us. My parents, Cass, Nate, Seraphine, Mira, and me. The conversation started pleasantly enough, but I felt restless, checking my phone under the table. Silas had been texting all day, and the excitement of our secret communication made this family gathering feel even more suffocating. So, Nate, my father said, cutting into his roast beef, how's the accounting business? Still busy with tax season coming up? Very busy, Nate replied, but I enjoy the work. There's something satisfying about helping people organize their finances. So exciting, I muttered, not looking up from my phone. The table went quiet. I felt everyone's eyes on me. What was that, honey? Mum asked. I looked up, realizing I'd spoken louder than intended. Nothing, just agreeing that tax returns are absolutely thrilling. Nate's jaw tightened. Vess. What? I'm just saying, not everyone can have such a predictable career. Some of us like a little excitement in our lives. Cass shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Vess, maybe. I mean, don't get me wrong, I continued, emboldened by what felt like control over the conversation. Nate's very good at what he does, very methodical, very safe. The way I said safe made it sound like an insult, which, honestly, it was. There's nothing wrong with stability, Seraphine said quietly, but her eyes flashed with anger. Of course not, I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Some people are just built for routine. Wake up at the same time, eat the same breakfast, take the same route to work. It's very reliable. Vesperine, my father's voice carried a warning. But I was on a roll now, feeling powerful in a way I hadn't in months. Like last weekend, Nate wanted to go hiking. Again, same trail we've done 5 times. I suggested maybe we could try something new, something spontaneous, but that's enough. Nate's voice was quiet but firm. I'm just sharing with the family. You're being cruel. He set down his fork and looked directly at me. And you're embarrassing yourself. The words hit me like cold water. Excuse me. You heard me. This isn't playful teasing. This is you being deliberately hurtful because I don't even know why you're doing this. I felt the table's attention shift, and suddenly, I was the one being judged. I'm not being hurtful. I'm being honest. Sorry if the truth hurts your feelings. The truth? Nate's voice was getting louder. The truth is that you've been checked out of our relationship for months. The truth is that you're sitting there texting someone else during family dinner. The truth is that you're trying to humiliate me in front of people who care about us. I am not texting anyone, I lied, slipping my phone into my lap. Really? Because your phone has buzzed 6 times since we sat down. Mira was staring at us with wide eyes. Cass looked like she wanted to disappear. My parents exchanged worried glances. You're being paranoid, I said, falling back on my usual defense. And honestly, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're so insecure that you can't handle normal conversation. Normal conversation? Seraphine finally spoke up. You just spent 5 minutes tearing down my brother in front of his family. How is that normal? I wasn't tearing him down, I was just... You were being a bitch, Seraphine said flatly. Seraphine, Mom gasped. No, I'm sorry, but someone needs to say it. Nate is a good man. He works hard, he's kind. He's been nothing but supportive of Vez. And she's sitting here, making him sound like some boring loser because what? Because he's not exciting enough for her? I felt my face flush with anger and embarrassment. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're the problem, not him. That's enough, my father said firmly. We're family here. We don't talk to each other like this. But the damage was done. I could see it in everyone's faces. The disappointment, the judgment. Even my mother, who usually defended me no matter what, looked uncomfortable. I think I need some air, Nate said, standing from the table. Nate, wait. I started to rise, but he held up a hand. Don't, just don't. He walked out of the dining room, and after a moment Cass quietly followed him. The silence that followed was deafening. Mira was playing with her food, clearly upset by the tension. Seraphine was staring at me with barely concealed disgust. Well, I said, trying to salvage some dignity. I guess everyone's being a little sensitive tonight. Ves, my mother said softly, what's gotten into you? Nothing's gotten into me. I'm just tired of everyone acting like Nate is perfect and I'm the problem. Aren't you? The question came from Mira, so quietly I almost missed it. Everyone turned to look at the 10-year-old, who was still staring at her plate. What did you say? I asked. Mira looked up, and those knowing eyes met mine. I asked if you are the problem, because Daddy Nate is sad all the time now, and you're always on your phone, and you're mean to him. Out of the mouths of babes. The truth, delivered by a child, hit harder than anything the adults had said. Mira, honey, Seraphine said gently, maybe we should... No, it's fine, I said, standing up. Apparently everyone has an opinion about my relationship, even the children. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, but my father's voice stopped me. Vesperine Aldane, you sit back down right now. I turned to face him. Joel Aldane had always been the disciplinarian in our family, but I was 33 years old. I didn't have to listen to him anymore. I'm going home, I said. You're going to apologize to Nate first. For what? For being honest? For being disrespectful. For embarrassing him in front of people who love him. For acting like a spoiled child who doesn't appreciate what she has. The words stung because they carried the weight of truth. But I was too far in to back down now. I don't have anything to apologize for. I walked out, leaving behind a table full of disappointed faces and the growing realization that maybe I'd won this battle, but lost something much more important. Outside, I found Nate and Cass standing by his car. They were talking quietly, and something about their body language, the way she was leaning toward him, the way he was actually smiling, made my stomach clench with an emotion I didn't want to name. Ready to go? I called out, trying to sound casual. They both turned, and I saw something pass between them. A look of understanding, maybe. or sympathy. "Yeah," Nate said quietly. "Let's go home." The drive was silent except for the occasional buzz of my phone. Silas was asking about meeting up later, and despite everything that had just happened, the thought sent that familiar thrill through me. When we got home, Nate went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I sat in the living room, scrolling through Silas's messages and trying to convince myself that I was the victim here, that everyone else was overreacting, that I deserved better than this boring life with this boring man. But Mira's question kept echoing in my head. "Aren't you the problem?" For just a moment, sitting alone in that perfectly decorated living room that Nate had worked so hard to provide, I wondered if maybe she was right. Then my phone buzzed again, and Silas's latest message drove away any doubts. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would meet him for those drinks. Tomorrow I would remember what it felt like to be wanted by someone exciting. I had no idea that Nate was already 3 steps ahead of me. The next evening, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, applying lipstick with shaking hands. I'd told Nate I had to work late. Dr. Martinez needed help with inventory, I'd said, another lie to add to the growing pile. Nate had barely spoken to me since the dinner disaster. He'd slept on the couch, left for work early, and responded to my attempts at conversation with polite but distant replies. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger part felt justified. If he was going to sulk instead of fighting for our relationship, maybe he didn't deserve me anyway. Silas had chosen Café Luna, a trendy spot downtown that I'd never been to with Nate. Everything about it screamed sophistication and excitement, exposed brick walls, dim lighting, craft cocktails with names I couldn't pronounce. It was exactly the kind of place that made me feel alive. I spotted him immediately. Silas Grant looked even better in person than in his photos, if that was possible. Dark hair that looked perfectly messy, arms covered in intricate tattoos, wearing a leather jacket that probably cost more than Nate's monthly car payment. When he smiled at me, I felt that familiar flutter in my stomach. "Vesperine," he said, standing to greet me. "You're even more beautiful than your pictures." No one had called me beautiful in months. Nate used to, but lately our interactions had been limited to logistics and arguments. "Thank you," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. "This place is amazing. I thought you'd like it. You seem like someone who appreciates the finer things." We ordered drinks, something complicated with gin and herbs for me, whiskey neat for him. Everything felt sophisticated and adult and thrilling. "So tell me about yourself," Silas said, leaning forward. "What's a gorgeous woman like you doing on Tinder?" I took a sip of my drink, feeling the alcohol warm my throat. Just exploring my options. Smart, life's too short to settle. The conversation flowed easily. Silas was a photographer, traveled frequently for work, had lived in 3 different countries. Everything about him was the opposite of Nate's predictable stability. When he talked about his latest project, a series documenting street art in Mexico City, his eyes lit up with passion I hadn't seen in years. "What about you?" he asked. "What gets you excited?" The question caught me off guard. What did get me excited? It had been so long since I'd thought about my own desires, separate from the routine I'd fallen into with Nate. "I used to paint," I said, surprising myself. "In college. I was actually pretty good at it." "What happened?" "Life, I guess. Work, relationships, adult responsibilities." "That's tragic," Silas said, and he sounded like he meant it. Creativity should never be sacrificed for someone else's idea of responsibility. Someone else's idea, like Nate's idea that we should save money instead of spending it on art supplies, like Nate's idea that hobbies should be practical. "Maybe I should start again," I said. "Maybe you should." Silas reached across the table and touched my hand. "Maybe you should do a lot of things you've been putting off." The touch sent electricity through me. When was the last time Nate had touched me like that? When was the last time anyone had made me feel desirable? We were deep in conversation about art and travel, and all the things I felt I'd been missing when I heard a familiar laugh from across the restaurant. My blood turned to ice. Nate Royston was sitting at a table near the bar with 3 other women, clearly having a girls' night out. She hadn't seen me yet, but if she turned around... "I need to use the restroom," I said quickly, grabbing my purse. "Everything okay?" Silas asked. "Fine, just give me a minute." I hurried toward the back of the restaurant, keeping my head down. In the bathroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. My cheeks were flushed, my eyes bright with excitement and alcohol. I looked like a woman on a date, which I realized with a jolt of panic I was. I pulled out my phone and texted Silas. "Family emergency. Have to go, rain check." His response came immediately. "Of course. Hope everything's okay. You're worth waiting for." You're worth waiting for. When was the last time anyone had said something like that to me? I slipped out the back exit, avoiding Seraphine's table entirely. The cool night air sobered me up quickly, and by the time I got home, I'd crafted my story. Dr. Martinez had indeed needed help with inventory, but we'd finished early. Simple. Believable. Nate was in the living room when I walked in, laptop open, working on something. "How was inventory?" he asked without looking up. "Boring, but we got it done." He nodded, still focused on his screen. "Good." I waited for more questions, but they didn't come. Part of me was relieved, but another part was almost disappointed. Shouldn't he care more? Shouldn't he be suspicious? "I'm going to bed," I said. "Okay, I'll be up in a bit." But when I woke up the next morning, his side of the bed was untouched. He'd slept on the couch again. At work the next day, I couldn't stop thinking about the evening with Silas, the way he'd looked at me, the things he'd said about creativity and not settling. I found myself daydreaming about what might have happened if Seraphine hadn't been there. "You seem distracted," Janet observed during our lunch break. "Just tired," I said, scrolling through Silas's latest messages. He'd sent photos from his morning run, looking impossibly attractive, even sweaty and disheveled. "Things still tense with Nate?" I looked up from my phone. "Why would you ask that?" "You just seem, I don't know, different lately, like you're somewhere else." Everyone kept saying that. Maybe I was somewhere else. Maybe I was finally waking up from the boring dream my life had become. When I got home that evening, Nate was cooking again. But this time, there was no soft music, no romantic atmosphere. He was simply preparing food with the same methodical precision he brought to everything else. "Smells good," I said, the same words I'd used a few nights ago. "Thanks." I waited for him to ask about my day, to try to engage me in conversation. Instead, he just continued cooking in silence. "Are you going to keep giving me the silent treatment?" I finally asked. He turned from the stove. "I'm not giving you the silent treatment. I'm just not sure what to say anymore." "What do you mean?" "I mean that I feel like I don't know you anymore. The woman I fell in love with wouldn't have humiliated me in front of our families. She wouldn't have been so cruel." "I wasn't being cruel. I was being honest." "Were you? Because it felt more like you were trying to hurt me on purpose." I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Had I been trying to hurt him? Maybe. Maybe I wanted him to feel as trapped and frustrated as I did. "I think we need to talk," Nate said. "Really talk, about what's going on with us." Panic fluttered in my chest. "What do you mean?" "I mean that something is wrong, and we need to figure out what it is before it's too late." "Too late for what?" I wanted to ask, but I was afraid of the answer. My phone buzzed. Silas again. "Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again?" I felt that familiar thrill, stronger now because of the tension in the kitchen. Here was someone who wanted me, who found me exciting, who didn't want to have serious conversations about our relationship. "I need to take this," I said, grabbing my phone. "Ves." But I was already walking away, choosing the excitement of Silas's attention over the difficult conversation Nate wanted to have. I had no idea that Seraphine had already texted her brother about seeing me at Cafe Luna. I had no idea that Nate was starting to put the pieces together. I had no idea that my carefully constructed lies were about to come crashing down. All I knew was that for the first time in months, someone made me feel wanted, and I was willing to risk everything to keep feeling that way. The next morning, I found a receipt in my purse that I didn't remember keeping. Cafe Luna, 2 drinks, the date and time clearly printed. I stared at it for a long moment, then crumpled it up and threw it in the bathroom trash. What I didn't know was that Nate had already seen it. While I was in the shower, he'd quietly gone through my purse, photographed the receipt, and put everything back exactly as he'd found it. The man I thought was weak and predictable was actually methodical and thorough, and he was building a case against me, one piece of evidence at a time. 3 weeks after my date with Silas, I was feeling more confident than I had in months. We'd been texting constantly, sharing photos and flirting shamelessly. He made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. The guilt I'd initially felt had faded, replaced by a sense of entitlement. I deserved this excitement. I deserved to feel wanted. At work, during our lunch break, I found myself bragging to my coworkers about my freedom. I mean, why should we limit ourselves to one person? I said, showing Janet and 2 other hygienists, Maria and Beth, some of Silas's more innocent photos. Life is short. We should explore our options. But you live with Nate, Maria pointed out. Isn't that kind of cheating? It's not cheating if nothing physical has happened, I said, though even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. Besides, if Nate was meeting my needs, I wouldn't be looking elsewhere. That's a slippery slope, Vess, Janet warned. These things have a way of getting out of hand. Only if you let them, I replied confidently. I'm in complete control of the situation. I took a screenshot of one of Silas's messages, something flirty but not too explicit, and sent it to our workgroup chat with the caption, "When someone actually knows how to make you feel special." The responses were mixed. A few laughing emojis, some concerned faces, one, "Girl, be careful," from Janet. I brushed off their concerns. They were all in boring, long-term relationships. They didn't understand what it was like to feel trapped with someone predictable. What I didn't know was that Beth's husband worked with someone who knew Cass. What I didn't know was that screenshots of group chats have a way of traveling much further than intended. What I didn't know was that by Friday afternoon, an anonymous email would land in both Nate's and Cass's inboxes. The subject line read, "Thought you should see this." I was at home, getting ready for another work inventory evening, actually another date with Silas, when my phone started ringing. Cass's name appeared on the screen. "Hey sis," I answered, applying mascara in the bathroom mirror. "Vess, we need to talk." Something in her tone made me pause. "About what?" "About the screenshot someone sent me. About Silas. About what you're doing to Nate." My stomach dropped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me. I have the messages right here. The ones you sent to your work group chat, bragging about some guy who knows how to make you feel special." I sat down hard on the bed. "Cass, I can explain." "Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're cheating on one of the best men I've ever known." "I'm not cheating. We're just talking. It's harmless." "Harmless? You're on dating apps, Vess. You're meeting other men. You're bragging about it to your coworkers. How is any of that harmless?" I felt cornered, defensive. "You don't understand what it's like. Nate is... He's boring, Cass. He's suffocating me. I need something more." "Something more? He loves you. He's built a life with you. He's been nothing but supportive and kind. And this is how you repay him." "You don't know what our relationship is really like. I know what I saw at Sunday dinner. I know you humiliated him in front of everyone who cares about him. And now this." There was a long pause. Then Cass asked the question I'd been dreading. "Does Nate know?" "Know what?" "Don't play dumb. Does he know about Silas?" There's nothing to know. Answer the question, Vess. I closed my eyes. No, he doesn't know. Well, he's about to, because someone sent him the same screenshots they sent me. My world tilted. What? The email came to both of us, from an anonymous account. Someone wanted to make sure the truth came out. I was already moving, grabbing my keys, cancelling my plans with Silas via text. I have to go home. I have to explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to him for weeks. That you've been making a fool of him while he's been trying to save your relationship. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Vess? Because from where I'm standing, you look like someone who's about to lose the best thing that ever happened to her. I hung up and drove home faster than I should have, my mind racing through possible explanations, excuses, ways to minimize the damage. The messages were old, I could say. Silas was just a friend. Someone was trying to sabotage me. But when I walked into the house, I found Nate sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open, staring at the screen with an expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, exactly. Disappointed, resigned. Nate, I started, but he held up a hand to stop me. I got an interesting email today, he said quietly. Screenshots of some group chat messages where you bragged about someone named Silas making you feel special. I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear how you explain this. He turned the laptop toward me, and I saw my own words staring back at me. The screenshot I'd sent to the work chat, along with several other messages I didn't even remember writing. Those are taken out of context, I said weakly. What context makes this okay, Vess? What context makes it acceptable for you to be on dating apps while living with me? I sat down across from him, trying to look contrite. I know how it looks, but it's not what you think. I was feeling neglected,